From the first video on inheritance, we talked about this hierarchy diagram where I was thinking about a vacation. What better thing to think about than vacation right now? And I have different types of vacation. I have a flight, which is a vacation, a road trip, which is a vacation, a cruise, which is a vacation, and I also have like a sports road trip for my soccer team, which is a road trip. A sports road trip also is a vacation. And so we have this diagram, this little flow chart here that we need to talk about. Now when it comes to programming, my first video didn't talk about that at all, and this second video really still isn't going to get into the Java programming or programming for inheritance yet. It just still wants you to get to grasp the concept and the idea and what's going on. So for inheritance, I'm going to take the example of a flight. Okay, let's say I'm going on a flight vacation. Well, I have to remember that a flight is a vacation. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to turn this into a little bit of a story type scenario. So I've got, let's say, a vacation class. It's going to build me vacation objects. And inside those vacation objects, I'm going to have some variables, some instance variables called cost and number of days and the destination. Because every vacation, when you go on a family vacation or any type of vacation, you typically are going to have a cost associated with it, how many days you're going to be gone, and a destination that you're headed to. And so this vacation is great. This creates me a vacation. Now, let's say I decide that my vacation is going to be a flight. And so when I schedule a flight for on my vacation, I need a flight object. And my flight object is going to contain what airline I'm flying on, my seat assignment on the airplane, my flight number, and all of that kind of stuff. Well, what happens here is a flight vacation says, whoa, wait a second. I've got airline and seat assignment and flight number, but you know what? I'm a vacation. So here's kind of how the story goes. The flight says, hey, that's a nice code you got over there, vacation. See that code over there? I want that because I'm you. I'm a vacation. I'd like to have it. So it kind of just says, I'm a vacation too, and it comes on over and just kind of eats it up. All right, that's really what happens. The flight says, yes, now I'm able to use your code. The flight inherits the vacation class. Okay, inherited because it received it. Okay, if the flight receives cost and number of days and destination, it inherits it from the vacation class. So if the flight class is actually the larger class now, but inside of it, it contains everything that the vacation class has. And so we have to keep this in mind when we talk about inheritance, is how one class can inherit another class by basically, you can think about it almost as eating it up and taking it in and having access to everything that the other class has. Right? So that's kind of the big idea. So we have parts to inheritance now to discuss a little bit. The flight class is called a subclass. Now this is going to be a little bit confusing, some of the terminology I'm going to talk about for just the next minute, but then I'll try to clear it up at the very end of this video. So the flight class inherited the vacation. It's called the subclass. The flight class has more, or the flight class has access to more code. It's called the subclass. Okay. Now you have to be very, very careful. Okay, the class that will contain more code is called the subclass. Okay. A subclass eats up or accesses or takes in the superclass. So warning here, a subclass is bigger than a superclass. That sounds so contradictory, but again, I'll try to clear that up in just a minute. All right, so what we have is just a little diagram here. We have a subclass is the larger, a superclass is the smaller, so that's just something to keep in mind as we work through this. Flight is a subclass, and vacation is the superclass. So the superclass is the one that gets absorbed. The superclass is the one that gets transferred over to the other one. All right, now, in order to understand why those terms seem contradictory, we need to go back to what I had in the first video on inheritance, and we need to understand the diagram, the hierarchy diagram, flowchart, because this is really what's going on. Okay, we have a vacation that's planned, and right now we're talking about this one right here, the flight. Okay, so we have to remember that a flight falls under the vacation category. A flight is a vacation. Now, by the way, I may have just given it away. The flight is the subclass because it is basically a subclass of vacation. Now, it's true that flight has more data. Flight has more access to more code. Okay, that's great. Flight is a larger program if you think of it that way. But flight is a subclass because of the flowchart, because of the hierarchy diagram. Flight falls under vacation. Vacation is the superclass because it is above the flight. Okay, that's the reason that you should probably think about subclass being flight. Subclass is under vacation. It is a vacation. It is a more specific type of vacation, even though it has more code, which is great because flight should have more code. It should have all of vacation's code, and then it should add its specific code for a flight. Okay, so hopefully that helps you understand it a little bit. So I have a vacation. Okay, vacations have certain characteristics. Okay, they could have, like we said, a cost, a number of days, a destination. Uh, and then what happens is we go down to a road trip or to a flight and we say, we want more data here. Okay, this road trip, this flight, this cruise needs access to all vacation data, how many days, what's the cost, where are we going, all that stuff. But then we need to add other information, like for a cruise. What's the cruise liner? What's your cabin assignment? Those kinds of things. Flight. What's your seat number? What airplane are you flying on? What airline? What company? What's your flight number? Road trip. We would need to know what car are we taking. We'd have to know what roads are we going to drive on. Different things like that. So as you can see, when we talk about inheritance hierarchy, it's an important picture to understand in your mind as you're doing programming and understanding which classes are inheriting other classes. And the last thing in this video to understand is just the idea of superclass and subclass. So we should remember that the superclasses contain, if you will, the least amount of code, but they're called superclass because they are the highest thing in the hierarchy, or I should say they are higher. So the vacation class is the superclass. It supersedes all of these other things in my hierarchy diagram. Now, that's a little bit different because all of these classes in the middle, like road trip, flight, cruise, we'd have to be a little bit careful when we talk about these. Okay, when I talk about road trip here, road trip is a superclass. It's a superclass because it has classes underneath it. Okay, but road trip is also a subclass. It's both. Okay, road trip is a subclass because it falls underneath vacation. So this road trip is both a super and a subclass. Super because it's above two other ones. Sub because it's below vacation. Okay? Now, when I talk about flight, right now in my diagram, flight is only a subclass. Okay, flight's only a subclass because it just falls under vacation. Cruise is only a subclass because it only falls under vacation. Okay, these flight and cruise classes are not superclasses because I did not put anything under it. Very important to understand the terminology of superclass and subclass.